Bismillah, alhamdulillah, wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillah amma ba'd. In the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, indeed all praise and gratitude be to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As such, we ask Allah Azza wa Jalla to send his peace and blessing upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, upon his entire family, his noble companion, and those who follow him in his footsteps to the day of judgment, amma ba'd. Brother and sister, I'd like to welcome you to the Plain Truth TV. I'm your host, Abu Muhammad Ali Al-Ansari. I'd like to welcome you with Islamic greeting. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh wa maghfirah. Welcome to our show today, which is a reverse story to Islam. I have with me Brother John Zakariyah Christ, and he will be sharing his reverse story to Islam with us. Welcome, brother. How are you? Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Well, thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Alhamdulillah. How's the family and everybody?
Alhamdulillah, everybody is good. We are all together, and it's going well. Thank you very much. How about you and your family?
Alhamdulillah, everybody's good. So introduce yourself. Tell a little bit about yourself.
Okay. Well, you said my name. You kind of mixed the English and Arabic versions of my name. My name is John Zakariyah. John Zakariyah Christ, like you said. Zakariyah. So people either call me Zach or Zakariyah, depending on the person, how well they know me, from when they know me. I live in Turkey, so most people in Turkey call me Zakariyah, whereas my family, my mother, father, they would call me Zach.
Okay, alhamdulillah. So it's fine to call you Zakariyah?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, however is you're comfortable.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So today we'll be discussing your reverse story. So let's start off with your childhood. Can you please tell us a little bit about your childhood, where you grew up, how was the childhood life like?
Yeah, of course. So I was born and raised in the United States, in Indiana. My family was and is Christian. I'm the only Muslim in my family. My father's side, yes, alhamdulillah. My father's side was Catholic. My mother's side Protestant. But we went to the Protestant church. I only went to the Catholic church maybe once or twice when visiting my grandparents on holidays. But I grew up in the Catholic, the Presbyterian Protestant church.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was until I was about 14 years old. So I would call myself a Christian until 14, and then after, that's when my life started to change.
Why exactly change around that time when you became 14?
Well, at about 14, puberty and everything, people start to really think about who they are, what their beliefs are, the area around. And so I started to think, I was actually in church at the time. I became atheist at 14. And, it was the thing that hit me the most was when the priest was talking about Jesus and his role. And he said that he was God. I was thinking that in church, and I couldn't accept that. And so I rejected that belief. And at that time, it was about 2000 or so. It was really widespread. And so where I was in Indiana, you were either a Christian or you were nothing, in my mind.
Yes.
So by calling myself not a Christian, I thought I was an atheist. Looking back, that doesn't mean I was a pure atheist in the connection of God in the full sense, but the
was rejected version.
Yes, exactly.
So you basically rejected the Christian version of God.
Yes, and since that was all I knew, that was all I knew, I called myself an atheist, let's just say.
Okay, understandable. Okay, that's good. So your belief system background was Christianity, then you became atheist. Afterward, you mentioned that around 17, you became a deist. How did that occur?
Well, at 17, I started to think about my belief or my lack of belief. And if it was, I realized it was a reaction. It wasn't a real substantiated conscious denial of God. It was just, well, I'm not a Christian, so I wanted to really research what atheism was, and I went to a bookstore. I bought a book. Long story short, while reading the book, it was a book on atheism written by an atheist to prove atheism. The arguments contradicted each other. I saw that, and I couldn't call myself an atheist. That there had to be some sort of a creator, a necessarily existent one, who created everything, and so that's why I started to call myself a deist at the age of 17.
Okay, awesome. So from that on, when was your first encounter with Islam or Muslim, and what did you learn from your first encounter with Islam or Muslim?
Well, I actually had a friend from Iraq when I was in middle school and high school. He's actually still my friend. He's in the United States still. And it was in high school. When I was still calling myself an atheist, he said that Muslims and Christians believe the same God, which is a true sentence when you look at it from one perspective. But from my perspective at that time, I wanted the Christian God to be a God with a son. And so saying he, or at least how I that God, that Islam, God that's how I understood it.
Okay, I see.
Yeah. But
so that was your first encounter with a Muslim person?
Yes, that was my first encounter with a Muslim person and a Muslim who was trying to explain Islam. Now, I want to absolve my friend because if he had said that to me as a Christian, it would have made more sense. But in my specific position, I misunderstood what he was trying to get at.
Yeah, understandable. So at that time, did you know anything other than what he taught you about Islam?
Nothing. No. Not September 11th had. I don't remember if when he said that if September 11th, the Twin Towers and that if that had happened, because that happened when I was in high school, it was about the same time. Either he said that before or immediately after. So my only knowledge of Islam was basically the propaganda around 2001.
Media.
Exactly.
Okay.
So I didn't know anything, anything real about Islam, and
Okay. Understandable. So, what event led you to become Muslim? Where you start to search about it and led you to believe that this is the truth, that I want to accept it? Could you please expand on those?
Yeah, of course. So that was in university, my second year of university. Now I started to meet more Muslim people and people from all over the world. And in my second year, there was a Pakistani brother. His name was Ali. We lived in the same dorm, and he once talked about Islam. He asked me if I was interested. I said no, but then later on that year, I was looking on the internet, and I found some stuff that did pique my interest about Islam and the Quran. To make a story short, when I was reading about the Quran on the internet, I came to the conclusion that these things could only have been said by that absolute creator that I had confirmed when I was a deist. So, yeah, so but I wasn't, I'm reading from the internet, and so looking at the internet, I wanted to confirm if what I was reading on the internet was really true. So I talked with my friend Ali. I'm interested, but I want to talk to real people face to face about this to get a better understanding. We went to the mosque together, and when I came back, we were on vacation when that happened. So we went to the mosque together on Friday, and after the Friday, he introduced me to some of his friends who were in a halaqah, and I eventually met with the leader of the discussion, and we talked, and that process.
That led you
Yeah.
step by step.
Exactly. Let's say The process started in December, and I became Muslim in February. So there was about a 2-3 month period between the start and when I actually became Muslim.
Subhanallah. Did you have a lot of questions regarding to specific teaching of Islam? Many misconceptions that you need to clarify?
Well, yeah, that's a good thing because, September 11th was really, really new at that point. But at the same time, because I was an atheist, I didn't see it as a clash of, Christians versus Muslims, because I wasn't a Christian. And that's what it was being portrayed at that time. It was, George Bush, and it's a crusade, and that length. I was out of that, so I wasn't. It wasn't like I was against Muslims. So I didn't have this
bias view.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know anything, but I wasn't against Muslims in particular. I didn't see them as them attacking me. I'm a Christian; they're attacking Christians. I just saw it as, Christian. Get out of the religion thing. That Americans had attacked many people in the world, and this group of people, regardless of the religion, responded. So I saw it as as just that.
A political. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Absolutely. So specific question. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So in specific questions. So I mean, it was just I was more interested in two aspects. There was nothing. The political aspects were completely irrelevant for me. I mean, I want to put that. That was not an issue for me at all. The two issues for me were the mind and the heart.
Okay.
Because I had noticed when I was a deist, and I kind of want to go back a little bit because this is important. When I was a deist, I actually lived in a rather wealthy family. We had there were 4 people in our house. We had 4 cars. We had multiple houses. I had one house that was on a lake. We had a boat and a jet ski, and that I could ride, and I did ride every day of my summer. So I had basically anything you could want materially, but at the same time, I wanted to commit suicide. That's a very important fact. Yeah, that was before. Yeah, before I knew anything about Islam. And here comes my son wants to say hello. So this is my son Ahmed.
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. He doesn't really talk. Okay, you want to go bye-bye? Say salam. Okay. So, all right. So I was. My other son's going to come and is going to say hello too. This is Muhammad Yusuf. He doesn't want to come. Okay. So I'm talking. Sorry about that. So yeah. So
you had the material possessions, but at the same time you felt emptiness in yourself.
Exactly. That was very, very important in this process. I'm sorry. The kids are. It's bedtime. It's 10:30 where we are, so the kids are getting ready for bed, and they just about. Okay, so that's let me close the door. I'll be right back. I'm sorry.
Okay, inshallah.
Okay. All right, brother. Inshallah, that's taken care of. So material possessions, but at the same time an emptiness, a very, very deep emptiness. And when I look back at that now, it's because even though I was a deist, I didn't believe in the afterlife. That's the problem with deism. So, and the Quran, it says that, only those who believe in Allah and the afterlife don't have fear or are sad. So I lived that ayah in my daily life. So, that's something that I was living firsthand. And I realized that no matter what I had materially, it was just going to leave me. And since I didn't know whether there was an afterlife or not, it was causing me pain in this world. So, yes, that's why the main issues for me were not political, but one was an intellectual one.
Intellectual.
The heart. Why?
Spiritual.
Yes, exactly. Because Christianity, it does talk to the heart. I mean, I came from that, and it does. There is still some truth in it. Its issue is that it doesn't get past the intellectual, the rational part, and even though it does speak to the person's heart, if it doesn't go past the filter of the brain, you can't benefit from it.
Yeah.
So, in my discussions with the Muslims during this process, I realized that Islam did
Address both.
Exactly. Well, I realized very quickly that it addressed the intellect and that there was no problem intellectually. But I wanted to further understand whether if it would also cure the problem that I was facing spiritually or in my heart, and it did. Yeah, it did do that. And how did it do that? It wasn't that. It was. Let me just put it like this. The first ayat of the Quran is A'udhu billah bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Iqra bismi rabbikal ladhi khalaq. Read in the name of your Lord who creates. Okay? So when we take that, the brother who I was speaking to during this process, he was getting me to look at all of creation or every instant as a creation of his. That he would me and for you, and specifically in me. So I was able to see the each moment as a creation, therefore a work of. That was able to see each and true as a work of art. And that's one critique that for is that I believe in an actual God, but personal God, in the sense that he responds to you personally. He doesn't have personal. You don't have a personal connection, but when you see as a creation of God, that is then that relation with the creation. That this is more on the spiritual side, and that's what. So having that.
Awesome.
Having that consciousness while looking at every moment around me, seeing the moment as an individual creation. God is speaking through that curtain of creation. Was very, very helpful. One example, my problem was with the afterlife, and so So there are two things that need to occur for there to be an afterlife. If I believe in the God, but He's got to be merciful and not cruel. And exactly. So that's the main key. And when you look at Islamic history, the Quraysh, during Hudaybiyah, they rejected that, right? And they accept Bismillah, but we don't accept Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim.
Yes.
And that means that in my mind, the Quraysh were a type of deist,
Yes.
But they didn't know if God was merciful or if He was cruel. That was my state. I mean, the state of the Quraysh Mushrik was no different than my own state.
Subhanallah.
And so that key is Allah Rahman Ar-Rahim. The merciful, is it the compassionate? Because if He is, then now you've opened the door for paradise, Jannah.
Yes.
Right?
Hereafter. No.
Yeah, and so the discussion was going through those, kind of particularly
The
that proof.
step-by-step process.
Yeah,
Absolutely. That's beautiful. So those are the things. So basically, Islam satisfies you intellectually and spiritually, and everything just line up perfectly the way that that satisfy your heart and mind. Correct?
exactly. Yes, exactly. Yeah, and because
Absolutely.
a human is not just a mind, but is
Hmm.
also not just a heart.
Yes. It's a combination of both.
Exactly. So Islam,
Absolutely.
it balances both of those.
Awesome. Awesome. Alhamdulillah. So how did you feel when you became Muslim? I know sometimes people who revert to Islam, I hear their story. They said they feel tremendous. Some people said they feel tremendous peace. Some people said they feel like a weight have been lifted off their shoulders. Some people feel like they're reburned or washed away. They feel like refreshed. How did you feel when you became Muslim?
I felt relieved. I mean,
Mashallah.
that just that in a basic sense.
Mhm.
Why?
Mhm.
Because I had experienced the world and all of the material things in it, but that
Mhm.
fear of losing everything was
Yes.
taken away. I mean, that was the thing, that I will live for
Mhm.
eternity,
Mhm.
and the things that I have will also continue
Mhm.
to exist
Mhm.
for eternity. So that gave meaning to this life.
Subhanallah. Wow. Wow. Alhamdulillah, man. That's beautiful. Did you face any challenges, obstacles, tests after you became Muslim?
Yes, I mean there was a process after that. So
Mhm.
I would continue to go to halakha in the university that I was,
Mhm.
in the town that I was living in at that time, and
Mhm.
that was good because I had a very
Mhm.
the leader of the halakha of the discussion was very, very good. He very, very wise man.
Fruitful.
And,
Mhm.
but after that, I did go to France. I'm a French major, or I studied in French and I got my diploma in that. So I studied
Mhm.
abroad in France, and I met a lot of
Mhm.
different people in France. I was a new Muslim, and I didn't know all of the different currents that were around, and so
Mhm.
all of them coming at once. And
Mhm.
the problem with France is that, and this is different than America, a lot of the Muslims in France are
Mhm.
educated. It's not their fault. That's the
Mhm.
social dynamic happening. The
They
uneducated,
grew up in.
yeah.
Mhm.
Whereas the Muslims in America tend to be much more highly educated.
Mhm.
Then they come for different
Mhm.
reasons. So I was
Mhm.
getting a lot of pressure
Mhm.
by Muslims of very different mindsets, and some of them
Mhm.
didn't really know fully talking,
Mhm.
but they
Mhm.
thought they knew more than me. They did actually.
Mhm.
Because they were born Muslims, and so there was a lot of pressure.
Yes.
Hard for me to take in all those different currents at one time without
Mhm.
somebody able to really
Guiding.
show me
Mhm.
which one to focus on.
Subhanallah. How did you handle that situation, though?
Well, I did rebel, let's say.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
did go through phases. I actually went through the whole hadith rejecting phase while I was in France. Okay, so
Subhanallah.
yeah, because it would, there are lots of currents, and it just was a lot of pressure, and I didn't understand how to use them, understand and interpret them. It seemed
Mhm.
very lots of contradictions. The normal story, and I
Mhm.
did that, and then as a response, I
Mhm.
went. How did I get over this? When I went back to the United States, and I was in a
Mhm.
much more learned environment, and I was able to actually
Mhm.
go and talk about this to people of understanding, and they'd help
And
me understand
clarify all the misconceptions.
exactly. And so I
Alhamdulillah.
did, yeah, Alhamdulillah, I didn't stay in that. that position for a long time. I mean, after I came back to the United States and was able to talk to those people, I got out of that very quickly too, alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. There is a lesson there, for the believers. Because when you're in a stage where you don't have no guidelines and you don't have a teacher, discerning all the different science and how different methods to use to, read the test, it can become pressurized. And the easiest way for some people is just reject everything. That's the easiest way out. But if you're in an environment like you mentioned, you went where people are discussing, they're dealing with the issues, it becomes easier to deal with those situations. Alhamdulillah, that's good. So how did your family react when they find out you became Muslim? Family and friends.
Well, my family, because we discussed, I went through a lot of changes before I became Muslim. So when I first became Muslim, my parents just also thought it was, another phase that would pass over. Yeah. That changed after 3 years or so when I graduated university, and I still hadn't changed, and I actually got a little bit more sincere, or I started to understand more, know more, and I started to want to live it more in my daily life. Like I started to grow a beard. I started to be much more careful with what I ate. When I first became Muslim, I just, pork was haram, and so I didn't eat pork. But I didn't know all the other things that came with that. And, as I started to apply those, that started to scare my parents. And we went through some very rough times. I'm in Turkey now, and that's one of the reasons I am in Turkey. Not the only reason, but the problems I face with my family, they're much better. Alhamdulillah, I have a good relationship with family, but there was a rocky period, after I became Muslim. Regarding my friends. Because I was in university, you know how in America, friendships will change very quickly from high school to university. So
definitely.
Yeah, it's not like I said to my old friend. I didn't tell my old friend that they are not my friends. It's just changing
the
cities.
Vibes just doesn't go together no more.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And so I started slowly making more and more Muslim friends in university.
Yeah,
it was more of a natural process, and so over time, after even coming to Turkey, like I said, that Iraqi brother Mustafa in my high school is one of the only people from high school that I still talk to.
Subhanallah.
Yeah.
MashaAllah, man. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Has Islam impacted your life in any way? And if so, what kind of impact has Islam brought into your life?
Well, I mean, it completely changed my life. I mean, look, I'm in Turkey now as opposed to the United States. That's a
MashaAllah.
That's a big change. I wouldn't be in Turkey had I not become Muslim, alhamdulillah. So, I mean, I had gone through, that process of, this world it's not going to satisfy me by itself. Material goods will not satisfy me. I knew that before I became Muslim. That was something that I had already realized. But the solution to that was given through Islam. And so I guess maybe the best way to put this is that I will often say that I became a full human when I became Muslim.
Subhanallah.
And let me explain that a little bit. And that, as an atheist or as a deist, if there's a person who doesn't believe in the afterlife, he is forced to reject the desire that is in him for eternity. He wants to live forever. He wants to be with his loved ones forever. But if he doesn't believe in the afterlife, he has to reject that part of his humanity. He's forced. So, becoming Muslim and having the evidence for God, for the afterlife, I no longer reject that humanity, so I actually more fuller.
Subhanallah. That's beautiful. So, in order to basically understand the impact that Islam brought to your life is your whole outlook on life and how to about, living your life day to day, all of them change. Is
Yeah.
that correct?
Yeah, I mean, yeah,
Okay.
there were some things, that you would say this is what a Muslim already understands and knows that I had come to the conclusion
Yes.
to before I became Muslim. And so, I'm not giving you the long story, but a lot of my life that I lived before
Mm-hmm.
Muslim, when I became Muslim and started to read the Quran, I started to
Mm-hmm.
realize that a lot of the ayat that I was reading in the Quran, I had
Mm-hmm.
lived before I was Muslim anyway. And I said, huh. That's this ayat.
Subhanallah.
That's this ayat. And
Mm-hmm.
so that was an interesting thing. So I did come to a lot of realizations before. I just didn't know what those realizations meant at the time.
Subhanallah. Azim. So, as far from after becoming Muslim, what kind of improvement did Islam bring into your life?
Um, a lot of improvements. I mean,
Okay, give us an example.
I I would I would hope. I think I have. I mean, I would say I became more respectful to in general. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
to give an example, when I was an
Mm-hmm.
atheist, I would make fun of all religions all the time. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and then when I became Muslim, and my family is still
Mm-hmm.
Christian, so
Mm-hmm.
I became more respectful to their beliefs. It's not that I would
Mm-hmm.
say that they were right. I just wouldn't say
Mm-hmm.
anything before I would openly object, and I'd be very antagonistic. And instead of that, I did drop that, and I would be more.
Mm-hmm.
That's true. I
More understanding of the people.
yeah, I think so. And also, you know, just the thinking, that this world, when you know that this world is going to end, and that's one thing
Yes.
that we're supposed to do. Rasulullah
Yes.
ﷺ tells us to, if
Allah.
you increase your belief, you think
Mm-hmm.
about death because it's the thing that will
Yes.
take away the pleasure of that
All the
thing that.
pleasures of this life.
Yes,
No. No. No.
exactly. And so I started when I was thinking about that it brought a lot of things into perspective. What's important, what's not important. And it's
Yes.
not that I'm not going to say that I always live according to that mentality.
Mm-hmm.
I do
Yes.
fall into, as we all do, I fall into the bats of heedlessness. But
Yes.
for the whole part, it
Mm-hmm.
gives a more, a wider perspective, to look
Mm-hmm.
from.
And you,
Take
and you start prioritizing the most important things in life.
exactly, yeah,
Awesome.
exactly. It gives you a lot, your priorities.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah. I mean, one of the beautiful things about Islam, even the daily salat, it prepares us to be punctual, to be on time, to organize. It's a system that organizes us, you know, to live a proper life. So Islam is really, really, really impactful, and it can bring a lot of improvement to life. Okay, so before we conclude here, what kind of advice can you give to seekers of truth or people who are thinking about becoming Muslim?
Yeah. Uh, what was said to me, this is actually,
Mm-hmm.
by the brother who led the discussions. He said to me that
Mm-hmm.
if he said something, don't
Mm-hmm.
just take it as if it were
Mm-hmm.
true because he said it, and he's a
Mm-hmm.
really knowledgeable man.
Mm-hmm.
You need to take it, you need to investigate it, and you need
Mm-hmm.
to see if it's true for yourself. And that's the most important thing. We don't want imitation in belief. The
Yes.
and so I but we at the same time that doesn't mean we need to go too far, to just
Mm-hmm.
to criticize, or for the sake of criticism, like we say, playing the devil's advocate. So
Yes.
there needs to be a balance. We need to really, if somebody
Bounce it
says
out.
investigate it. I mean, Allah Ta'ala,
Mm-hmm.
He tells us to do that in the Quran. Investigate it. Don't accept it
No.
just because it came from previous generations. But at the same time,
Mm-hmm.
He also says that
Mm-hmm.
believe in the God of Abraham and the God of
Mm-hmm.
his progeny, alayhim salam.
No.
So there's a balance that needs to be taken. You don't believe because it's from, your previous generation. You investigate it, but at the same time, you don't criticize it just because it is from previous generations. It could be right. So,
Yes. So investigate it, and until you're convinced, basically, with the information you have is authentic to be believed in.
exactly.
Correct?
Exactly, but don't go too far in the other direction and criticize it simply because your parents or your grandparents believe in it.
Okay. Absolutely, absolutely. What about someone who want to become Muslim? What kind of
Somebody,
advice can you give in this? He's thinking about it. He's researching. He find it convincing, but at the same time, sometimes people, they find Islam is the truth, but they need some kind of sign, some kind of advice, to take the next step forward. What kind of advice would you give to those people?
two things I think I could say. One is that we
Mm-hmm.
must always remember the full span that we will die, and we don't
Yes.
know when. We don't know when that will happen. It could happen tomorrow. It could happen in 20 or years or later.
Yes.
And that's one. So when taking that decision, if somebody is convinced, I don't think he should hold it back. Because that's something that we're going to die, and so that's the main priority. What happens after that?
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
that's one thing to always keep in mind. The second one
Mm-hmm.
is to really, really, consider, can
Mm-hmm.
the things that we are observing around us happen on their own
Mm-hmm.
accord, or can they only come into
Mm-hmm.
through an exertion of power, knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
and
Well. Mm-hmm.
now these and so if a person that was the thing that brought me into Islam was
Mm-hmm.
that everything I'm observing can only happen
Mm-hmm.
as a result of
Mm-hmm.
will and
Mm-hmm.
knowledge. If these things don't happen, then
Mm-hmm.
this, the next moment, and every moment can't come into existence.
No.
And then
Alhamdulillah.
going that step and saying, how did that happen? Not taking
Mm. No.
basically, I guess I think I'm saying the same thing in a different way that I just said before.
Mm-hmm. Alhamdulillah. So in order to summarize, basically, you're saying take it as an urgent because death can occur anytime and it's not under our control. It can happen anytime. If you find something, and you believe it to be true, accept it because, you can lose it anytime. That reminds me, one of the sheikhs mentioned that he was speaking to a sister that she was convinced of the fundamental basis of Islam, but at the same time, she wanted some kind of signs, to Allah to show her that to accept the Islam now. And the Sheikh gave her a beautiful reminder. He said, imagine how many people in the world right now, let's say about 7.5 billion people in the world. Out of those 7.5 billion people in the world, Allah choose you and to give you guidance. If that's not enough sign, then I don't know what kind of sign,
Yeah,
that you're asking for.
yeah, exactly. There you go. And so to tie that in, so
Mm-hmm.
if you see every moment as being a creation that requires
Mm-hmm.
an infinite amount of will, knowledge, and power, that's a sign in
Mm-hmm.
of itself. Everything that you
Now,
witness around you becomes a sign pointing
sign
to
from Allah,
the Creator.
the
So,
Creator.
ex-
Alhamdulillah.
yeah, that was what I wanted to get at. Everything is a sign if you
Mm-hmm.
read according
Mm-hmm.
to
Mm-hmm.
your Creator in the name of your.
Now, Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah. So, inshallah, we'll be ending here. Do you have any final comment before we close it out?
Jazakallah khaira. I don't have anything. It was good to see you and to speak with you face to face.
Alhamdulillah, man. Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khairan for coming to our show, and I really appreciate for sharing your story with us. Inshallah, until we talk to another time, greet your family for me, give them a salam. So we're going to close it out here. Subhanaka bihamdi. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت وأستغفرك وأتوب إليك Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
عليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.